Can you hear me?
Okay.
I can
Hello,
hear
and
you.
thanks for everyone that's here early. We'll begin the program soon. Please say hi and let us know where you're listening from in the chat.
Hi. We are about to have a conversation with Rose B Simpson. Hi, Chris Ivy, the dopest, the freshest, the illest, the realest. Hyperboy Media. What's up, Cincinnati? What's up, Texas? Hey. So we're about to go. We're in conversation with Wheaton Arts. What's up, Columbus, Ohio? Nikki Allen, amazing poet. Oh my goodness. Hi, Vanessa German. I love seeing your work. I love seeing you. Hi. I wish that that you could see Rose also. I love you too. I'm definitely one of those. I am full of love. I think it sometimes scares people. They're like, how do you love me? You don't even know me. And I was like, what is knowing? But I love you. What's up? Hi, Olympia, Washington, Tammy Black. What's up? I'm so excited to have this conversation with Rose, whose work and spirit and words means so much to me. Isn't it amazing how sometimes you're just living your life in the world and you come across people and artwork, and if you're lucky enough, you get to know them and have conversations and go into like get to know them more, and their work becomes a part of your life and how you know yourself and your heart and your world. Well, Rose's work is like that. To me, Rose is like that. And I feel so fortunate to have an experience with their work. So if you're not, so check out Rose's work, check out Rose's Instagram also, and follow. You'll see what I mean. What's up, Tyra? I'm on two screens, so thank you all for being
Yes,
here.
you are.
Yes, I'm ready. Sorry, I'm not holding y'all up.
No, this is great. We have people that are logging in all over Canada, Ontario, and Toronto.
What's up, Canada? What's up?
Washington State, New Mexico, Pittman, New Jersey, Bethesda, Maryland, Pittsgrove. Somebody else from Pittsgrove.
Nice.
Oh, and we have somebody from the UK.
What's up, Brooklyn?
UK. That's great. Brooklyn, more from Washington. This is great.
Where are you all? Who's there?
Keep them coming.
Oh, what's up, Florence, Italy? Arkansas, those crystal bridges. I love that museum. Boca Raton, Florida.
Well, I think we're about ready to start the program. So I'll get this started.
All right, we're starting now.
This is wonderful. Okay. Well, Wheaton Arts is welcome, everyone. My name is Marcy Peterson, and I'd love to hear from you in the chat, and whether you're new to this series or new to Wheaton Arts, and where you're listening from. Wheaton Arts is thrilled to celebrate its 50th anniversary as one of the most unusual and creative landmarks in the Northeast. Founded by glass magnet Frank H. Wheaton Jr., the first Wheaton Arts buildings opened to the public in 1970. 50 years later, Wheaton Arts has become an international hub for artists, exploring the limits of their creativity and a reception for the region's cultural diversity. It has additionally earned regional, national, and international recognition for its unique collections and programs. This Wheaton Conversations will continue in 2021. Engage with us through the winter and early spring with the virtual series highlighting select and diverse artists with ties to Wheaton Arts. On February 4th, we will visit with Enar and Hamix Delatorre, and I'll put the link in the chat to the Wheaton conversation that's upcoming. And this is a Zoom webinar. You'll see the panelists, but we won't see you. And what you'll need to do is put your questions in the Q&A window. That's the best place for the panelists and the speakers to see what your question and answer them. Should you lose connection for any reason, know that you can close everything down and open the original email link to join again. You won't miss anything. We'll be here. The session is being recorded. You probably noticed when you signed on. Again, it is the speakers that will be recorded. Just to mention briefly, there are 3 types of support for Wheaton Arts. One is membership, one is donations, and the other is my all-time favorite shop, WheatonArts.org. And again, shop.wheatonarts.org. I want to correct that since I said it incorrectly. I want to introduce my coworker, Kristen Qualls. Kristen has been with us for quite a while, and she is the director of the Museum of American Glass, and she's now going to take over and begin the program. Over to you now, Kristen.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcy. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm so glad you can join us for what's going to be a fantastic conversation. We have 2 wonderful artists with us tonight. Coming from Santa Clara Pueblo, New Mexico, we have Rose B Simpson. She still resides in her ancestral homelands and works a lot with ceramics, but also mixed media sculpture. And I got a sneak preview of some of the slides, and I think there's going to be some car restoration maybe coming up, which I'm very excited about. So we're really excited to be Vanessa introduced us to Rose. So we're really excited to bring Rose into our Wheaton family with us and to learn more about her work. We also have Vanessa German with us. Vanessa was part of our emanation program. So you might have seen her installation on site in 2017. She is coming to us from her studio in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And she's a largely mixed medium artist, as you can see in the picture, with one of her power figures. So they are both going to show us some images that have been inspiring and important to them during this particular time, and will have a wonderful conversation about what is important to them as artists right now. So thank you very much, Rose and Vanessa, for joining us, and I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Wheaton. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Marcy. And thank you so much, Rose, for making the time and the space in your life and in your heart to be in conversation with me right now, and all of the people who are joining us on Instagram and everybody on the webinar. To everyone who is listening and who is watching this, I wish you well. I wish your family well, and wellness for your heart, and wellness for your body, and wellness for your soul. And I am Vanessa. I'm in my studio in Pittsburgh on Haudenosaunee Seneca Nation land. And it is sort of a wild week. My dog had puppies the night on the 19th into the 20th. So we call them inauguration puppies. And so it's really good to be here with you. Rose, how are you?
Hey, Vanessa, I'm happy to be here. I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time. We've been talking about talking.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you invited me to share this time with you, and I'm excited to share. We're on a roller coaster. I think we're in the midst of intense transition and change and integration. So we're holding on tight and just trying to remember our blessings, you know, be grateful.
Yes,
But
yes.
I'm happy to be
I'm happy and I'm grateful. And just so that I understand what people are seeing right now, what is the image of Wheaton on the screen right now, or is it just you and I?
The Wheaton image is on the screen with Sketch and you.
All right, could you have it just be me and Rose for a moment before we go into those?
Absolutely. Yes.
So Rose, what's the world like for you right now? What's your studio like? But start with, what's the world like for you? How are you in yourself and in your community and in your creativity? I guess we can just talk about that for now.
I know, we could talk about that all day. We are in lockdown here at the Pueblo, so we have police checkpoints at every entrance, which has changed the feeling of our space really strongly, because it feels like a strong exercise in sovereignty. Also strong care and preservation for our elders and the last of the culture bearers that we have here. And so that's been incredibly powerful feeling. And the fact that I go through this checkpoint to get to my home and I wave, and it feels it's incredibly validating in the placement and this time where I think we're reinventing and reclaiming space for our stories and our journeys as Indigenous people. And you know, I know I start with everything that I don't speak for all Indigenous people, but for here at Santa Clara, you know, it's really scary. This time has been really scary, and I think that I've been incredibly blessed to be able to go to my studio and work every day and try and imagine and create some sort of alternative and some sort of method of communication to a different sense in the outside world, you know. And we do our work here in our community and with our family and with the people we love, but there's also this bigger work that feels like I don't feel incredibly helpless and hopeless. I have a support system, and I have you know, my people and my supporters and, you know, opportunities that not everyone has, and I feel really blessed for that. That's how I feel.
That's a lot. Is it what kind of police force is it? Is it state police? Is it troopers? Is it tribal police? Like, who's policing? What is?
It's actually tribal police. So we have our tribal has its own police force, our department that's very small, but they have hired basically security guards who are my cousins or whoever sit there. All the grandmas drive by and drop them off like snacks. I'm like, you guys are gonna sit there and eat all kinds of junk food because everybody stops.
So
and
lovely.
Like, oh, you look hungry. You go to town and you bring them like a iced tea. I don't know.
That's a beautiful thing. It's
you have to have.
Yeah. I wonder. I wonder. Like, how do you experience the fear? You said it's scary. Oh, Rose, you're frozen a little bit. Well, a lot. You're a lot frozen.
Oh, no.
But it'll come back.
I'm a lot frozen. Can you see me?
Well, you're unfrozen. It just goes back and forth. It's fine. But it's like when you say it's scary, like, how are you? What is scary? I'm just curious because I'm curious because I do. I have to do a lot of work in my life and in my heart to place fear in the world because it is there. So many things are scary to me, and I've experienced so many things that I really work hard to recognize, like what the kernel of a fear is. So when you say that it's scary there, that it's a little scary, what is that? What is that?
the fear is that we'll lose ancestral knowledge through COVID. So COVID specifically taking out our elders who have knowledge that because of genocide is the last of that knowledge and the last of those memories. And so we have to protect them at all costs because they are everything to our future. Because there's so few of us left that we have to protect the knowledge bearers. And I think the fear is also coming face to face with post-colonial stress disorder, with genocide, with heartbreak, you know, and the reality of where we're at and what has happened. And right. So that's what I think, yeah, that fear is.
Wow. I will, I'm holding you all in the safe place in my heart. Thank you for sharing what it's like there. So let's talk about art. I'm gonna go into some images from Wheaton. So Marcy, I'd like to show the first images of my set that just talk about my work at Wheaton, so we can move to that. And then the way that we're going to engage in this conversation time is Rose and I have both selected images that are important to us in our practice and our life and like the ecosystem of our world. And we're going to talk about those and just sort of go into the soul of connection between who we are, where we are, why we make the materials that we're making with, and explore that way. So this conversation is an adventure and it's an exploration, and the conversation is a place of heart, it's a place of soul, and it is a place of revelation also. So I'm just going to share a little bit for the people who love Wheaton. Rose, you have got to go to Wheaton sometime and work with their artists. I know that that's in your future. Have you ever worked with glass before or worked with master glassmakers?
No.
So it's right. It's good. It's coming for you. I'm so fortunate to be in Pittsburgh, which has Pittsburgh Glass Center. So the first time that I really worked with glass or worked with master glass blowers was at Pittsburgh Glass Center. And I got invited through Judy Pfaff, the amazing sculptor, the amazing artist Judy Pfaff, into Wheaton's residency program that went into the show Emanation. And so this is an image of Skitch, who runs the hot shop and probably has another title that is like maybe manager of the hot shop, and that's me watching them blow elements for my sculpture. So it was a really wonderful process working with Wheaton. Could you all go to the next image for me, please? Because I had some entrance into working with glass. You come onto the campus at Wheaton, which is, for those of you who live in Jersey and who have been to the Wheaton campus, it's so special. It's special that sometimes it's like going back in time. It's like this little village from another time, but it's also a place, a yes place. So Rose, Wheaton is the kind of place, like I've had residencies before where the people are sort of sketchy. They're like, maybe you can do that. Maybe we have the budget for that. And they're like, I don't know. I need to talk to these 3 other people to sign off on you actually doing this large scale installation. But Wheaton is a yes place, and it's an artist place. So they really, I had this really great experience where all of the artists I work with wanted the exploration themselves as artists, and they wanted me to be happy. So this is my little studio at Wheaton. Could you go on to the next slide? And this is, so what would happen for me is I make power figures. I make figurative work, and I make work that I want to do something. It is work that is purposed in every part of the process of the work. So if I'm dreaming about the work, if I'm sketching the work, I surrender into the power and the purpose and sort of the divine connections of everything that has happened to bring me into any place where I am creating. So all of the ingredients that I work with, being a mixed media sculptor, if you look at this image and you look at the shelves and you look at the desk, you see like lots of blue fabric and these shoes and old parts and wood. So I'm always collecting materials. And it was my process at Wheaton was looking at some of the handwork that I do with making a lot of fabric beads or making the faces that I make, and looking at how we can explore some of those forms in glass. And so that was a really, that was a lot of fun to think about translating fiber to glass and how to do that. And could you show the next slide for me, please? Thank you. And it was really also a wonderful thing to be in residence with so many great artists. And you can take a look at the installation that I created at the Museum of American Glass, which I got to work with so many amazing people there, and I'm so grateful for that time. I no longer make single discrete objects. I make entire communities of figures. I believe in the power of people, and I believe in the power of what happens when people bring their energies into a concerted momentum towards anything. And I believe that we are really going to understand more and more of that power of bringing our collective creative prowess together to move ideas forward and to move ourselves to places that we design. So I would like it if we could. So this is just an overview of my time at Wheaton, so thanks for indulging that. I would like it if we could show Rose's first slide, and Rose, if you could talk to us about what you're seeing, what we're seeing, and why.
So Vanessa, you had asked me for, I believe, 7 images of things that add to my or create the ecosystem that is my creative process. And I thought about it. That was a really cool question, because I think about that often. What is that, and what feeds my process, and what is vital in my life? And this image here is of me and my mom and my friend Tony. We're building. I'm putting mud on the wall. My mom is laying the adobes with Tony, and we're building a greenhouse. And that was this last few months. My mother is an amazing painter, an artist, an architect, a farmer, a grandma, a mama, a cultural preservationist, amazing person. And I think that building and remembering why we're doing what we're doing is so important. So, you know, as hard as I work in the studio, it's super important to think about how our work is incorporated, or are the bricks and mortar of a future that we're hoping for. And my studio is at the Flowering Tree Permaculture Institute. It's a nonprofit space that studies sustainable living systems and permaculture. It's there on the so this greenhouse is going to be a space where we can grow out our traditional seeds, and also have, you know, sustenance for the community through maybe trying times, you know, ahead. So there's an investment in the future, in hope, you know.
Well, my mom was an artist. My mom her name was Sandra German, and she died 6 years ago. But most of the time it's like she's not dead at all. Like, I feel like I have just as much access to her as I always did. But what was it like to grow up with a mom who was an artist? What did you see? And how did those ingredients take up form inside of you?
I'm realizing, I think now, that my mama wasn't an artist in the regular sort of Western ideas of artists, that she used everything she did as a way to communicate, as an alternate voice for the passion that she felt inside of her soul. And she was also, you know, a matriarch in a matriarchal community. So she was the one fixing the car and using the chainsaw, and there was nothing that, you know, there was no such thing as sort of gender norms or roles. And, you know, she was a, you know, our mom and dad and our parent, you know, our ultimate nurturer in all the ways. Whatever needed to happen, she figured it out. And because of that, I built the neural pathways and the belief systems that you could do it. You know, it doesn't matter what it is, you figure it out and you can do it. And I realized that I have privilege around gender capacities or capabilities that I didn't know until I left home that other people carried internalized. And because of my mama being who she was, a very passionate person, with a lot of, she's a Sagittarius, she has a lot of like stories she's following very deeply, and I'm so grateful for that. Was your mom like that? Like,
yeah, my mother was, you know, it's funny that you said that you should, whatever she did, she would figure it out, because my mother would, that's a phrase that was so present in my youth and in growing up in my relationship with my mother. She would always say, figure it out. You'll figure it out. You'll like, look here, look there, but you'll figure it out. And so she didn't give me, like, she didn't baby my human capacity. She didn't say like, go over there and ask those people over there how to get you here, to get you there. She would say, figure it out. And I used to think, honestly, when I was a child, like TV, the television moms made me think something was wrong with my mother. Like even the Cosby mom made me think like, why isn't my mom cooking me? Why don't I come home and there's not cookies? My mother did. Why isn't she doing these things that mothers on TV are doing? But but what my mom did was she raised us with the understanding that we have the power in ourselves to make our own life and to make our own world. And I used to think she was cruel for telling us, you just figure it out, and that she was just like casting us off to go and do things. But she really, it's so interesting that you said that you have privilege around that, because I move through the world and I know sometimes I experience people who will say to me, like I had a boyfriend say to me once, like, I don't want to be with you because you don't need anything from me. That's what he said. That's what he said. He was like, you don't need anything. And I was like, I'm good. I'm good. Companionship, like I don't have that experience with like needing somebody else to complete me or to do anything. But I also could learn to understand how to ask for help better and to how to sort of release any spaces of shame or judgment around not being able to figure it out sometimes. Mm-hmm. So my mom was very, you know, she's strong. She was strong in a way that I haven't actually experienced a lot of people put language to. And I understand it more now as I'm older. So can we see another image, Rose?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Oh, wow.
I'm not seeing the image. Oh, there it goes. I really slow internet, so I hope it works for this. And I keep up with everybody out there. I really like this image. This is from Okeawinge, is the Tewa village that's right north of us. So it's our neighbor tribe. And this is an image of a Tewa woman with a pot on her head. And I think often about my context, and this is actually, the slide was representing culture and music and sound, because when I left New Mexico and I went to Rhode Island, I went to get away from my context, to have some freedom, have some freedom from my family. I have a really strong family here in northern New Mexico, and I wanted to be anonymous. I wanted to figure out who Rose was away from all that, right? I needed to know, like, who am I if I'm not from the Naranjo family of Santa Clara, Pueblo, like this very strong lineage. And when I went to graduate school, I kept trying to speak without having any cultural references. And I realized that the cultural references or the connection that I had was beyond, you know, a lot of those stereotypes or judgments or expectations. And so I've been trying to refine that down to very core expression or feeling. And it reminds me of a sound or a smell or like a taste of a tea that only you know. A smell that only you would know because it only happens at 4:35 in the morning, you know. There's a certain thing that's very vital to, it's an ingredient to yourself and your creative process that doesn't have to control it, but it is a very strong part of your identity. And so I think about how much, whatever the smell or the vibration or the sound of what this is that I was given being a part of this place, between these two mountain ranges that my people have been for centuries and centuries, that it informs my work and it's vital to that expression. And it goes all the way to youth cultures and the fact that I came of age in the 90s, you know, and that was who I was in Española, New Mexico, which is a lowrider capital of the world. And I went to the Santa Fe Indian School, which was a Native American boarding school for high school. And all those things became a vital part of that cultural flavor that is me. I moved to Albuquerque to be, you know, a young person and who I was, and I painted trains and I sang underground hip hop groups, and I, you know, these things that became who I was, you know, from like, you know, youth cultures and the things that we figure out how to belong and who we are and what that taste or that sound of self looks like, feels like, tastes like, moves like, goes all the way to, I really feel that Erykah Badu built a part of me because of how much I've listened to her music. And if she knew that I listened to her music like 50% of my studio life, like how much of her vibration became a part of my pieces, my work, and I think about, like, when I turn on music, because music is vital to my process in the studio, that becomes a collaboration, you know. Yes. And I go, yes, you know, if I'm listening to reggae today, that's going to be part of that vibration, and that decision is very important. Yes. And I think a lot about art and especially music, and how the influence, the curation of vibration through sound that I bring into my body as I work in clay, and clay has water in it, so it's receptive to vibration and energy and intent. So I am curating an artistic influence that comes through me and then goes into my work. And so I think often about all those cultural resources that I'm to become myself, and trying to be you know, also critical of it and being like, why are you listening to that? What's it doing to you? To what end? Are you feeling insecure and whatever, so you're needing something to give you a stronger spine, and what does that sound like, and what does that do for you, you know? So it's good to build a constant, like, yeah. So I was just thinking about culture and the sort of flavor of those things that help build, are vital to my practice. That's what this is.
I remember, thank you for that. Thank you for communicating those truths, because so much of it is true for me. And I think that Erykah Badu would love to know that 50% of your studio music, for real, because, you know, her soul, like, she carries her soul so with holiness, and she moves with understanding that she is moving power, and she's moving love, and she's moving medicine, and that ingredient becomes active in people's lives. Just from the little bit I've experienced of her when she goes live or something like that, or experienced, I recognize that, and this is something that, like, I hear you saying as an artist, but one of the simple ways I'll say it is that inside of my practice and my relationship with materials in that ecosystem, there are things that I know that are happening, and there are things that I don't know are happening. And that there's something I say also is that more than one thing is happening at the same time. And so I think about that dimensionally on different levels, how I think about how Erykah Badu's ancestor songs are alive inside of her, and that power and that movement is alive inside of you. But there's only so much knowing that we can trace back to, like, what we actually know is happening. And I think that I have a great appreciation for the places of love and mystery that happen in my studio. And I also wanted to say that I remember years ago, before I was calling myself an artist, when I was really just still trying to save my own life as a human being, and I was in my studio, and I would listen to the same recordings over and over again, and I would listen to Dr. King speeches. And I remember being in the studio, and hours and hours and hours would pass, and I would change over the course of the hours and over the course of the days, while I would be working on some like meticulous, like laborious detail on something in my studio that would give my body and my spirit a chance to have freedom away from the task, because it would be like this repetitive task, this like ritual of laying these beads or doing this work or like winding fabric a certain way. And it was like doing that would allow my heart and my spirit to rise up to a different place. And I would listen to Dr. King's speeches. I would play them over and over again. And I remember realizing after I basically saved my life, like my life was saved during this period of time, when I came to understand what I was making, like what was happening to me when I was making. But I found that what I was listening to and the sound of his voice, and what I was pulling out an understanding of was that I was listening to the sound of love when he would speak. And that made me start to realize that I could work with love intentionally in my studio, and I could work with love as a material. I could work with love as magic. I could work with love as a substance. I could work with love as an act of like really conscious future making, because I realized that Dr. King was using the same language that everybody uses. He would talk about love and say freedom and justice, but for me, his voice sounded different. And that's when I realized that it was the sound of love. And so I started to think about what other invisible ingredients can I pull intentionally into my practice. And I haven't thought about it as intent as like with music as much as you have, because I listen to people reading stories when I'm in my studio. I listen to a lot of storytelling, a lot of story people. So can we see your next slide, Rose? And also, if you ever have any questions for me, just let me know.
I love that that we're all working with the same thing, and it's not what you do, but how you do it. It's what intention you put into it. It's what you pull from within or without, and embed right into what you're doing. I love what you're saying about like the wrapping and the sort of monotonous work, like wrapping something or beating something or doing something over and over and over again. I always think about wrapping and binding, and like sometimes I'll
I see that in your work, like honestly, Rose, when I saw your work at the Ford Foundation, I recognized myself in part of it. And when I see your binding, when I see the fabric wrap, like I recognize some like vital spear of like truth and information inside of that wrapping. I look at it and there's a way without language that I understand and I know something and I'm validated and I'm grounded inside of that. I experienced that with your work and the fabric in other ways also.
Yes, I would say the same thing, that when you're talking about like that intuitive move to do something, and there's this moment like when I'm decorating or adorning a piece where I'm listening, I'm like, it's more of a like, instead of I'm going to do this to this, I'm like, what do you want?
Yes.
Right. And so you have to go to a different place to be like, okay, you're sort of listening and close your eyes and choose what I'm choosing, huh?
Even that movement that you just did, Rose, even this, that movement, like for real, I feel that, like having to do, like not even having, what I'm saying is like recognizing that I'm allowing every cell of my body to listen. Like every cell of my body, every eyelash has its own set of ears, every hair on my head. And it's like, and so it's that way of listening and sharpening a frequency that I have experienced in like, I don't meditate in a way, but there's a time when I understand what you're saying, like to go into a place of adornment or decoration, not with this forceful, this energy that is like demanding of the task or something that is like hammering at it, but that is bringing it close to you, that's pulling the information in close. And you know what's fascinating is I just wrote this poem about the artist Nellie Mae Rowe for the High Museum, and in researching her, this is like in Fayette, in Georgia, in the early 1920s or something, 1920s, 1930s. She said that she would lay on the plank wooden floor of the like cabin house that her family lived in with a pencil and a piece of paper, and she would wait. She said she would wait, and then it would be like she was pulling the drawing to her, that she was listening for the drawing. And I was like, when I read that she was saying it, somebody did an oral history of her, I was like, I know what that is. I recognize that it's almost like that time when it's a really foggy day and you know the world is out there and it starts to come in. But I recognize that also, and I recognize that as a real power in the world that we listen, because it can be so difficult to listen in this world, I find. So I love that you have that experience. I love that you speak those words and that you validate that with this. I feel that, I love that, I know it. Thank you. All right, so we're looking at stuff.
This is clay.
Clay, yes. Just have you ever done a performance of prepping clay?
No, I haven't.
Because I could see you doing it and just like walking into a space and saying, this is clay.
I love
and
that.
It's just whatever happens after that, that could be the only text. And you could become the clay, and whoever the viewers are, they are also the clay, because they'll be transformed by everything that happens. But I love that. That's powerful. Okay, so this is clay.
No said.
Cool.
I love it. That was amazing. I love that. If I do that, I'm gonna call it a collaboration with you and me. I'm gonna do it. And it's just like, I'll just say, Vanessa, I'm gonna do this performance, even if no one's watching. I'm gonna do this performance.
Oh, Rose,
like,
wait.
I'm entering into the space. Vanessa, you're there with me. Let's do this. And I'm gonna
just go live on Instagram at some point and be like, this is a performance. This is my performance. and then just whatever as it happens. And I feel like you're in collaboration with the minerals, the earth, the water, and with anybody who bears witness, and to the invisible witness and to the physical witness. That so I'm looking forward to This Is Clay.
Me too. Part of the reason, I mean, we're both multimedia artists. One of the reasons that I choose clay again and again is because it was given to me through my my matrilineal ancestry. So as long as you can go back in time, you know, till my ancestors figured out how to cook clay in this area, the women in my family have been doing this. So it runs in this core DNA thing. So it's a strong and very old relationship. And there's another privilege that I often forget, that I have an ease with clay that was given to me, and I don't often honor that. But when I was in graduate school, because I was like the first Pueblo person that I know to get a master's degree in ceramics. Like, who does that?
All right, everybody listening, cheer that up, yes, yes.
I got a master's in
first,
ceramics,
but not the last.
Right. And one of the major things, I went to graduate school, I realized to learn how to communicate about it. It wasn't about, it was about being in a petri dish of people who didn't necessarily get the same life lessons or whatever I got from my community and my family. So all it was, okay, how do you communicate what you already know so deeply and so well? And so in graduate school, it was just like hoarding it down and figuring out how I can talk to these people about what I'm trying to say. How do you say it well? How do you get the point across the most clean, easy, direct, right? And
was that as successful? Was graduate school good for you?
Yeah, I'm glad I did it. There were things that were absolutely excruciating. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of unconsciousness in lots of ways. That was gnarly, for lack of a better word. But I'm glad I did it because it gave me a vocabulary that I didn't have before, and the vocabulary came from within. And I had some amazing teachers and guides and friends, you know.
I hear that. The vocabulary came from within.
Yeah. And one of those is that I was trying to explain how material takes on intention. So basically I was trying to scientifically explain prayer and how you know, clay, wood, metal, whatever it is, takes on that intention as you use it. So I used Masaru Emoto's Hidden Messages in Water. He was a Japanese man who studied the reaction.
I'm familiar with that work. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I studied.
Could you say the name again? Could you say the name again in case anybody who's listening wants to check that out and do that research?
It's Masaru Emoto, Hidden Messages in Water. And he experimented in, if you speak mean to water and then photograph the droplets or freeze it, the ice crystals actually change and deform if you're mean to water or if you give it love. And so that to me was the closest thing I could find to scientific explanation of how something reacts with your intention, to intentionality. And clay, because it is actually water, as you work with it, we exchange, you know, energies as you work with it, whether you like it or not, you know, and it's best to be intentional with that, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, that was what I basically spent a lot of time was trying to hone in. I had a teacher also at RISD who wrote a book called Aesthetics of the Everyday. Her name is Yoriko Saito. And I was really focused on relational aesthetics, and it's not what you do, but how you do it that matters, right? And so trying to not judge, because I can find a lot of self-hatred and shame as I start like hypercritical and micro, analyzing everything I do. But to have compassion for that process, but also try and be as conscious
Yes.
as possible, right? So it's like, how do you approach the art making and the intention and the vision, and the, a lot of times they don't like to say prayer, but I want to say that, like, intention is prayer. What you believe and what you're trying to do to change the world is like you're putting it into that, and it's going out into the world to do that work. So you better be clear about what you're trying to do, you know
Yes.
because it's
Yes.
powerful. I
And
believe it's powerful.
I believe that you both believe and know that it is powerful, and that you experience and you live that. And I think about how, also, while we're just talking, Marcy, could you go to my next slide? But I think about how you said to be compassionate in the process and to be conscious in that process. And I think about sometimes the privilege that I have to have a studio and have materials, and to explore and experiment with that compassion in my space, and with consciousness, to be conscious in my space in all these different dimensions. Because I feel like it's challenging once I step out of my studio, so that I have a practice inside of my studio that, like, being an artist has made me, like, I am becoming more human. I become, like, I don't know, that's not the best way to say it, but like, I am feeling every crevice and all of the fullness of my humanity in my wholeness through my studio, which I feel really privileged to have, and really privileged to be an artist in my life, to get to explore, to get to really adventure into and be like, explore the wilderness of my own spirit and the wilderness of my own humanity inside of being an artist, and having space and working with material. And so I really appreciate hearing what you're saying about prayer and about intention, because for me, it also brings up the place of just understanding the power of thought, and in quantum physics, and the power of shaping the world, and the world being made by our intention. And so what happens when we move with that power consciously? So Rose, what do you see on your screen right now?
I see a blue house with stars on
Well,
it.
tell, how do you feel when you look at that blue house?
I feel like whatever's happening within that is where I want to be.
Hey, Ada, the art house. And that's the art house in my neighborhood. I sold a couple sculptures to a museum and bought two houses right next to each other.
Yes.
And one of them is the art house that you see there. And whenever the doors open, anybody can come in. There's a big garden in the back of the art house, which anyone can see different videos and looks of the art house. If you look on my Instagram, you can see the garden. And there's an artist in residence who lives on the second floor of that house. And then my studio is right next to there. And I think about, and I feel so, like, I wish I could, sometimes I wish we had the technology that would allow me to enter into your experience, Rose, of living on land that your ancestors have lived on for centuries. Like, what is it to open your eyes and walk out of your house and look at a land and the horizon and the sky, and to know that your people have been there and have loved there and died there and cooked millions of meals there. Like, I remember was at some weird party in Paris once, which if you haven't been to a weird party in Paris, it's coming for you. But I'm at this weird party in like a suburb of Paris where people kept asking me, where are you from? Where are you from? And I would say, I live in Pennsylvania in the United States. And then they would pause and they go, but where are you from? But where are you from? And so I identify most soulfully and solidly as an earthling. And I wonder what it is like to feel such long connection to a place and to people. And this house here is rooted in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh that is very Black and experiences all of the things that places on this land experience where there are people of color. And it was really, Sarah, oh God, Sarah Radler was at that weird party in Paris. Thank you so much for speaking that up in the chat. It was weird. And also, like, I cried a little bit. I had to step out of that party because I had several people in a row asked me where I was from. And I started to have this experience. There was sort of a different experience for me of being dislocated. But it was also, I love you, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing so much of Paris with me. But I wanted to so somebody asked the question earlier that they sent the question in with the registration is like, why do I call myself a citizen artist and what does that mean? And when I would be in my studio in that time where Rose, I was coming to understand that I could work with intention. I was coming to understand that I could actually call in and name and activate in my body through the invisible place, in my imagination, through my heart, through my soul, into my physical body with all of the power and technology that it is to be human, and then move a specific power through a creative task into the object. So thinking about how you said, like, how this clay holds prayer, the intention that's inside of it, coming to understand that in my studio, while really trying to save my life, really trying to figure out how to be alive in the world that we're in, like really be alive by my own definition, I found that place where I could work with love as a power that goes into this object. I found that I decided that this is the way I want to live my life. Like, I want to live my life with this experience at the center of my life, this experience of being alive in my human body, moving intentionally with love, moving intentionally with courage, and moving intentionally with the openness of heart and mind to show up in ordinary situations every day, and be alive and awake and intentional and loving and creative and with a spirit of goodwill. I learned that through the studio. And so in this space, the art house, I figured that my life would be well lived if I shared that. And so why there's this house and you can open it up and anybody can come in, and it hasn't been open since COVID, and the form of it is going to change in a really exciting way soon. But this house for me is evidence and is the living heart that is connected to this way that I came to understand that I could be alive by my own rules, and I could be alive and put the experience of creating intentionally with thought, ideas, and imagination at the center of my life, and to share that with other people would always be a garden that is fertile and is making more of itself. There's more love and more courage and more creativity. And so for the person who asked why I call myself a citizen artist, one of the things I said to Rose is that, what is it like to know that your people have been truly fundamentally citizen to the land that they're on, in that relationship of edgeless mutuality on this land, to be really citizen there. So and me having this experience as a descendant of enslaved Africans on this land, worked, my people picked cotton on that huge plantation that spanned beyond the borders of Louisiana, but my people are from Mer Rouge, Louisiana, near Baton Rouge, and then I can't trace my people back past a certain place. But I wanted to really root myself in the generative identities as a citizen. So citizen is an inhabitant of a place, a region or whatever, but I look at all of the dimensions of my citizenship, like my citizenship as an earthling in relationship to the planet, and my citizenship as a queer person in the queer community, my citizenship as a neighbor in this place, and to center all of the dimensions of my identities in, to center that around the engine of creativity. And also, whenever I have a really, really hard time in my life and I pray before I go to sleep, and then I have this dream where my ancestors come to me in the dream, showing me very conscious patience and grace in this dream, and they only say one thing, and they say create. And so this house for me is something that so many people tried to talk me out of. So many people were like, I don't know that you want to buy a house. Like, I don't know that you want to do that. Like, I don't know that you're going to be able to, there were so many people who were like, you're going to do it by yourself. You're just going to do that. And so I was like, I mean, it's just the house. Like, it's not like I'm not buying a mountain. I know this group of people who bought a mountain in Utah and I was like, it's not a mountain, this is a house. I'm gonna have a house. But I knew that it would be challenging, and it has been challenging, but it's such a wonderful place. And it means so much to me to have this place of sharing what the love of my life. Hi, Rose.
Hi.
It's Rose. It is 7 o'clock. How do you feel about going for, like, can you do 10 more minutes?
Absolutely. I could talk to you for a long time.
So
I have a little girl in the other room who's wanting my attention off and on though.
All right. So with love and respect to the nugget, then we'll do like 10 or 15 more minutes and take some more questions. All right. So can we bring up Rose's next slide?
What I was thinking about, Vanessa, is that there's a lot of Native people who have been displaced. There's a lot of Native people who don't live in their ancestral homelands. There's a lot of Native people who can't look outside and see their hills and mountains and their ancestral places, and I am one of not too many people who still have the privilege to reside on our ancestral homelands, and I know that matters, and it has fed me. And I'm also of mixed heritage, but I was raised primarily here at Santa Clara, and I feel like I'm looking out the window right now and I can see the trees on the hill and our creek and the cottonwood trees over it, and the sun's going down, and I can see the light on little patches of snow behind the juniper and pinon trees, and the sky is like bouncing the sun, and I know the mountains are back there and the mountains over there.
That makes me want to cry.
And it's not, I think often about leaving and what that would mean, and more than anything, these hills and those trees and the rocks and the creek and the smells and the seasons are my family here. And I'm still a visitor, and I still have to be respectful, but just like everybody on this road is related to me, so is this place, is my relations, and they helped raise me. And so I have respect and a deep love that's beyond. There's so many beautiful places on this beautiful planet, and I've gotten to experience so much beauty. And I'm not saying that Santa Clara is the most beautiful place in the whole world, but it is to me because my family, this is my family.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And even our crappy
Rose, I love the sky so much, and I love the earth so much, and the beauty of the earth. And I loved how giddy you got just in that moment where you were like, it's beautiful inside, because that feeling is something that overwhelms my capacity for language every single day that I look at, that I'm upon the earth, and that I see where the earth meets the sky, and how the sky changes so much. And I just don't have, I'm so in love with it. I'm so in love with the earth. And so thank you so much for that. I just wanted to interrupt you to say, I feel you, I hear you, I hear that, I love that. And I wanted to have you ever had this is an experience, these are two experiences that I have. I know I interrupted something else. I just want to share. Okay, so I remember when I was leaving Standing Rock after something, like, I forget what had happened, and there were a couple guys in the back of a truck, and there was this young man who had just gotten clean, and he said, he was talking to somebody else, and he said, he was saying, like, I want to be better, I want to be whole, but like my family is missing so many things. Like he was talking about physical objects. We're missing things, like we need our things for our stories. And I never forgot that young man saying that his healing was connected to these objects and was connected to these stories. And I was at a museum somewhere that was like, I was doing some relationship with this museum, and I was in their collection, and they had all of this work that they had been given, of work from tribes that they didn't even know, all of these objects that were just in there, and they can't show them. And they're just in this, just cavernous storage collection place at this museum. And I was like, and so they were like, would you like to see things? And I was like, sure, show me things. And they're pulling these boxes out, and I told them, I said, at the time I probably had been at Standing Rock the year before. I said, I met this kid, this young man who said specifically he needs his stuff back. Basically, he needs his stuff back. And and they said that they were like, it just takes so much research to find out where they go back to, because they actually legally can't show them. And I think about how some of the objects that we make with our intention and our love and our soul, and all with the materials that we work with, will be so important to the healing and the story and the wholeness of people people whose names and faces we might not ever see or know. And that's not something I think about a lot, but sometimes I get scared in my studio when I'm making work, because I don't know, do you ever experience pressure? Do you ever get pressure to make certain kind of things? Do you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that has happened to me more over the last couple of years, where it's like, people from outside, from like the commercial art world, are like, you should really make this, or if you make me 20 more of these, if you do that, like experiencing all of this, like sort of sometimes pressure to turn to make things for some voice outside. And I think now about how so important it is to keep doing that, listening, and honoring it. Yeah. Thanks for listening to that. So Rose, share some more about what we see here, and then I'll show another slide and we can. Go on.
I think often about power objects and what he was talking about, our objects that have been imbued with intention, which makes them have medicine and the power of transformation. And it's our intention that creates that, right? So objects of art making, if we have that intention, it has the power to make change, right? And I think about your beings that are empowered and are strong and reflecting empowerment, and I think often about my work being intentionally reflecting our vulnerability and our roughness, and having compassion for that, but also reflecting that strength that is then my prayer for empowerment and healing and brave and the courage to go into the darkest places in ourselves that are yucky and stinky and ugly, because we have to go into those places to heal. And I'm not just talking about indigenous people, I'm talking about everybody, because it was people that took those medicine things from other people. What makes somebody take those things and put them in a dark basement where they're hidden from light and warm touch for centuries? That's a dark place inside someone. Can we reach inside those spaces in everyone? And if I can do it for myself, and if I can do that through my work and dig into those places and find compassion and put light on that roughness, that hopefully we all can do that in all of our ways, and no one is exempt. No one is exempt from that work, and it can be incredibly beautiful,
Yes.
And the reason I make cars.
Please do a show called "And the Reason I Make Cars."
And since I was talking about power objects and prayer and medicine, I make cars because Española is a town that's sandwiched between two reservations in northern New Mexico, and has a really old history of Spanish colonial and indigenous relationships. And it's also lowrider capital of the world. It has one of its things is the heroin capital world, which is hard. People come to Santa Fe and then they lock their doors as they drive to Taos, right? As they have to go through Española to get to the next town. And I grew up here and in Santa Clara, but Española is our town. And one of the most beautiful things about Española is the darkness and the difficulties and the really, really intense histories, and there's hard experiences here. And out of that hard experience comes some of the most creative expressions of self-love. And I've seen that through lowriders.
Yes,
and
speak that.
So lowrider culture and the way that people dress and the way that they drive through town has been, there could be a house with no windows and it's like half burnt down, but there's a really nice car in front. And I realized that if you have nothing, if you have hardly anything left, if you can get in your car and cruise through town and feel some sort of self-worth and pride, it's worth it. And so
yes.
I think of things as tools, and as a person who navigates a lot of self-hatred and shame, a tool that I have used through my life has been to give me a sense of empowerment, pride, and self-love. And I've spent a lot of time picking the good parts out of the toxic masculinity and the toxicity and car culture, and trying to find how I can claim certain parts that fit my soul and my identity, so that I can cruise and feel that self-love and that pride and that empowerment. And that may not be a tool that will be necessary forever, but for me, it's been really important in my own identity, in the building of my own personal strength in life and my freedom. As a child who was abused, I bought my first car when I was too young. I got my first car at 12. I got my driver's license at 14 because I needed my freedom. I needed to escape. I needed a metal shell that would take me away from hard things. And so I projected a lot of my freedom and my self-love and the care for myself onto a car. And it's transforming. You know, I had a 98 Jeep Cherokee that I drove to Rhode Island from New Mexico back and forth, and it had over 500,000 miles, and it was still driving good. And it's changed. You know, I became, you know, I was feeling my oats kind of, and wanting to be like this super strong queer person. And I got like a Dodge Challenger sports car, and I got so many speeding tickets, like they almost took away my driver's license. So I had to get a mom truck. So now I have a mom truck, and that's like an important part of my identity. So it's lifted, and the other day I put a step on the side so my little girl can get in, you know. It kicks down. It's this automatic step. You kick it and it pops under, and then you pull it and it pops out. I have this. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen The Mandalorian, but I feel like I cruise into the parking lot of the grocery store and I have my mask on. You know, I get out, open the door, and I kick down the step for my daughter, and she steps down, and we're like, we're like walking through the parking lot like the Mandalorian and my baby Yoda and all. That's, you know what?
Yeah, I can imagine it, bro. I can imagine it. It's all right. It's all good. I'm so grateful that you are who you are. I'm so grateful that you are alive, who you are, where you are, and in this time. Because there are so many human beings who need to hear that you put your love and you found medicine and did the work of protecting and healing yourself through creating a car. Yeah. And so, like, I can imagine people saying, I bet I could do that with my baking, or with, I think that you can do it with anything that you can focus your love, that you can focus love into. Right. All right. So thank you so much. I'm going to show one more image. I don't know what it is. But Rose, somebody had a question for you, and they said, do you ever use the earth or materials from other places and you actually put it in your clay? Do you want me to read you the question? It says, Rose, do you ever add elements to your clay like soil from your home or places you have traveled?
The photo I showed was actually clay I dug on the side of the road. So it came from the side of the road, or on the other side of the mountains. And it was it's a good spot of clay that my mom told me about. But I actually get most of my clay from a commercial clay supplier. And it, when I smell it, it's of the earth, and I taste it, it tastes like the earth, and it's no less sacred if it comes from this relationship we have with what's underneath our feet, and what you could call our Mother Earth, no? So the things that I have, I'm gonna just add to that real quickly, is that I'm really, really sensitive to cultural extraction. And so I don't like to take things from my place to put in someone, and to put it in something to go somewhere else, unless it's vital, and that's rare. Because the conversation I'm trying to have is that we are all citizens of this place, and I don't need to extract the precious resources and what's left of my culture and my community and my ancestral homelands to convey that message. So it's not necessary. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense. I believe that the artist Christine Mays asked you that question. And she is an amazing human and sculptor. And yeah, she asked you that. So thank you for the answer. I remember when I was a kid, my mom, who was an artist, would drop us off. I'm one of 5 kids, and she would drop us off places. So we would all like watch each other, and she could go and she could gather material for herself. She would go find fabric and get her notions and do things. But we were at a park one day, and I remember digging through the sand in the playground at the park. And I realized that under the sand, if I went down 8 to 10 inches, it was clay. And so I started digging clay out of this park in the Wilshire district of Los Angeles, like super central Los Angeles, and like dug out this clay. And I remember as like a 6 or 7-year-old having this conversation about how clay will do whatever I ask it to do, and that it is really listening to me. And I took this clay home in a plastic bag, and it felt so powerful to me, this like cantaloupe size of clay that I dug out of the ground. And I realized that it was listening to me and it would respond to me and that it had power. But as a small child, I remember being afraid to make something of it because I didn't know if I would be able to do right by the clay as a child. Like that's what I remember having. But I had, unfortunately, a lot of fear as a kid. So like fear is one of my earliest memories and earliest relationships, and it gets everywhere. So it was, as a little girl, I remember loving the clay and knowing that it had power, but not feeling like I had that I could do right by it. Like I didn't actually feel like I could play with it. I felt like I had to do right by the power that the clay was like pulsing in at me. And clay was my first art love. So okay, so we're gonna close soon. I just want to share an image of some of recent work from my studio. This is a piece called Homo Galacticus in Flight. And I'm thinking a lot about, as Rose has said, about being a citizen here, being a citizen on a planet, and recognizing that the planet has consciousness, that the planet is evolving, that every single day, a day is alive, a day is a living, breathing thing, and inhabiting this truth out loud, that we are citizens on a planet. The planet is alive, a day is alive, and we are expressions of the planet. We are expressions of day. We are expressions of light. We are expressions of water. And recognizing so much sometimes the limitation that is put on us as human beings. For me as a Black, queer, gloriously fat and delighted, like I'm sort of, I feel like I go into rooms and I'm always like the most excited person in a room, but that there are these limitations, that we have structured so much limitation around what is possible for us as human beings. So this is a work called Homo Galacticus in Flight, and for me it honors street kids, but almost in a way that is like intergalactic. So it's like this figure that is flying, or it is a figure that is lying on its back and is surrounded by these invisible forces that are applying pressure on the living moment. But all of the work that I make, when I make work and I'm well with myself, I recognize that the work is doing multiple things at the same time in the process, and I can work intentionally, really medicinally, almost pharmaceutically with my creative process, like applying it to my well-being. And sometimes if I'm under a lot of pressure, if I have like work for a show, then that gets distorted, and it gets disconnected in the studio. And so I am I love this place of recognizing inside of your practice, Rose, that you are active inside of the power of, like, the dimensional power of creativity and intention, and in a place of power and love. And I'm so grateful. Marcy, you can take this image away so that it's just Rose and I, but I want to say how grateful I am for your life and for all of everything that is in support of your life and is in support and affirmation of your soul, and of every step that you will continue to make forward. I'm so grateful for that and for the time that you've shared with us this evening. So thank you so much, Rose.
You made me want to cry over and over. I feel it in, like, your prayer is so strong. I can feel it like in my cells, and that's really amazing. And I'm grateful for the reflection of, and the validation of my work and my intention that I see in you. And I'm so grateful you exist, because it gives me strength to keep going, and you know, that I'm not alone and I'm not crazy. And that's super important, those small validations where I get to wake up in the morning and look at your videos on Instagram and hear your voice, and it says, you know, keep going, Rose, you're doing it, and that's good. And we all you know, are trying to make medicine and change this world to be the beautiful place that we know it is, you know, and just to highlight and validate those beautiful things. I love that last piece you showed. I want a picture of it.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone who has joined us. Thank you for all of your questions. I want to give a special thanks to the students at Vineland High School who wrote in, and like great appreciation for Rose. I hope that some of you got to experience what is a really, has been a really soulful artist conversation. And I hope that all you, the high school students and all the artists out there, I want you to know how important you are, and how important your ideas are, how important your questions are, and how important your creativity is. Because Rose just said, so, you know, there's this connection and we're working the same way, and it's affirming and it's validating. Well, we affirm and we validate that inside of all of you, So for those of you out there who you got that book of poetry in the closet, or you have the thing that is burning in at you, we affirm and validate the power of your being to do the work and what the work will do in the world. And I'm so grateful for all of you listeners, and I love you. I send you love and wellness from my heart of peace and my heart of grace and my heart of compassion to your heart of peace and your heart of grace and your heart of compassion. I love you, Sarah Radlett. I love you, Ada Griffin. I wish you well, all of the places that you are on the planet Earth. I send deep love to your people, Rose. I send deep love to your mama. I send deep love to your child, to the studio cat, and to all of the animals that surround you, and affirm your humanity and connection with animals and the land as earthlings. In deep love and deep gratitude, I say thank you. And I want to bring back on Marcy, because she got some closing slides for y'all to see some information. So again, thank you all, and we love you.
Well, thank you all. And I am not going to come on myself. I'm just going to, because I want to share this important information, and that's so that you can follow Vanessa and Rose beyond this beautiful, beautiful conversation. And I just need to gush on behalf of everyone that is so grateful for the both of you, and thank you for sharing so much of yourselves and so deeply of yourselves. I laughed and teared. Everyone is so inspired by both of you. It's just wonderful to witness the power of each of you. It came through into our homes, into wherever we are tonight. And again, thank you both. Thank you for being here with us. Can you see the slide? I want to make sure I'm sharing, and because I'm just so excited by you both. And so thank you again. And I'm just going to share one more slide so that you can also contact Kristen Qualls if you have other additional information. I also put that information to contact Vanessa and Rose in the chat. If you'd like a copy of that chat, you can get a hold of me or Kristen. And again, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you all. Have a beautiful good night. I know we'll all be glowing just for being here with you both. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, everyone. Love you. Be well. I'm clicking the leave button, but I stay in your heart and you stay in my heart. All right. Peace, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Peace. Bye.